Episode 6 of Skeleton Crew was exactly what we needed from this show. From the get-go, Edward and I have not been huge fans of the kid characters in this show, but I am super happy to admit that Edward called it from the first review we did for this show. This episode focused much more on character development than anything else, and it was fantastic. As we said in our first review, these kids are pretty dumb. They're kids, and that we weren't big fans of them. But as Edward said, we just needed to wait, let them develop, and he was so right. Real quick, let me know what you thought about episode 6 in the comments, and are these kids starting to win you over if they haven't as well? The kids are once again without Jude Law, and they did some much needed growing up here, and I loved it. In episode 4, we saw that the kids were without Jude Law for the first time since his introduction, and we saw they were very much childlike, immature, and we weren't huge fans of the episodes for separate reasons, but they weren't really what we wanted. But now them being betrayed by Jude Law and being on their own once again, they've had to grow up and develop, and I loved it. I liked how they focused on KB on this episode because they really haven't done that yet. And this is the first time I can recall in Star Wars that they've had to repair a cyborg just because of like weather damage, tear and strain. Like usually in Star Wars, you need to suspend your disbelief as there are some things that we didn't see him stop for fuel, but we just assumed they did. And here, seeing them actually need to like fix KB as she's having issues, I really enjoyed because that's not something we've seen before, and I that was just very refreshing, and I enjoyed how open the communication was between the kids. Once they learned that there was something wrong and they needed to admit it to each other, they did it. It's that easy, and I feel like us adults can learn from that, and we lose that as we get older. We get so anxious and we wonder what if, but it really is just simple as just telling them. Open communication is always best, and I think that's something we can learn more of, because odds are if you just tell them, it's going to be a lot easier than what you're picturing in your head. And as I said, there are some fantastic developments with these characters, and as they grow up and learn more of how this universe actually operates than what the myth they were told on Adin, we saw them actually buckle up and get themselves out of a situation, and towards the end, actually work as a team. And that's not something we've really seen before. They've always been at ends. They've acted as kids, pushing buttons physically and metaphorically. Here, they did what needed to be done, and they started to grow up and act as one team, and I'm really excited to see that continue with the final 2 episodes. This show continues to prove that you don't need to reinvent Star Wars to make a great story, and you don't need to rely on the same narrative either. You just need to create interesting characters that develop as the story goes on with just some intrigue to tie it all together. Star Wars has always had hidden meanings, grand gestures, and a lot of politics, but this show is just incredibly simple, and that's what we needed. It doesn't need all of the fluff that I mentioned to be great. Yes, I love the fluff. I really love the fluff. But I love how refreshing this is, and how it's getting more people into Star Wars that previously weren't into it, and that there are also smaller stories in the universe. I mean, there's a lot more out there than just a galactic empire or something about the Republic. There are smaller stories on the Outer Rim or in universes we don't even know of yet. And I really hope Star Wars and Disney learns from this show to do more shows like this, in a small corner of the galaxy that are just really simple. They need to relearn how to tell stories that grab audiences instead of just trying to rely on fluff. And this is a really great step in the right direction. And I hope after they wrap up The Mandalorian, they continue with these smaller stories. Yeah, they can build up to something bigger, but we need the smaller stories and the foundation first before we can get to something so big. And I think this is a great first step for them in how to continue with Star Wars that makes it refreshing and brings in new audiences. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and make sure to go check out our episode 6 review of Creature Commandos. There is one more episode left. I know a lot of you guys have been hesitant on James Gunn, but this episode in particular is one you may want to see.